going through the movie in my mind of sitting in a hospital bed when a doctor's telling me that you might need to get your affairs in order because it's unlikely you're going to last much longer. And that was right before Christmas in 2017. So my kids were there, and right before we said goodbye, when they were leaving. We didn't mention the fact it'd be likely the last time I'd see them, but it was just me and my mother at that point. And we were waiting in Jacksonville because I was getting really sick. And I was eating a sandwich late at night. I wasn't supposed to be eating either that late, but I was going to be dead anyway. So I was enjoying a sandwich. I remember that. And the phone rang. And in my phone is a number that I had coded Mayo On-Call Liver. So I saw the name come up and I grabbed it. And the nurse says, "Is this Mr. McMahon?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Are you in Jacksonville?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "We have a potential donor for you." I said, "Wow, incredible." She said, there's a catch though. He's what we call a high risk donor. He is a prisoner, and he is also an IV drug user. So this is what's called a high risk donor. And I took it, of course, and I said, "Yeah, we'll be right in." And so we went across the street to Mayo Clinic. I had bought a house just across the street. I was just sitting there waiting. I was there a few months, and then the liver was not ready. The person was still alive, and the doctors were coming in throughout the day and saying that they're waiting to get other transplant teams in place. This kid was on life support. He was brain dead, but not dead. And to my understanding, they put dozens of transplant teams in place all over the country, and his liver saved my life, but other parts of him saved other people's lives. So one day I'm thinking I'm going to be dead and I'm never going to see my kids again. And the next moment I get an organ in my body.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Terrance McMahon with us. Terrance is a retired CEO and TEDx speaker who has helped financial advisors build profitable location-independent businesses. In 2016, Terrance was sitting in a hospital room dying from liver failure. Doctors said he had 90 days to live and that his chances of finding a match for a liver transplant were slim. So slim that it wasn't until the end of his 90-day death sentence that a liver from a young prisoner in Alabama was deemed a match. Given a second chance at life, Terrance decided to recreate himself from a multimillionaire, morbidly obese CEO of Mass Mutual Northern New England to a healthy and recreated business mentor, speaker, podcast host, and 3 times best-selling author. Today, he's an internationally recognized marketing and lifestyle expert who's helped thousands of people transform their life and business using social media and online marketing systems. Terrance grew up as one of 6 children in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He attended the University of Massachusetts Lowell and the University of Alabama. He has 2 wonderful sons, Joseph and David, and lives in Florida with his partner, Michelle. Terrance, it's so great to have you on the show.
Good to finally be here with you.
Well, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to have you on the show for many, many months. I really enjoyed our meeting to over a meal here locally, just a mile away from my home. I don't know, maybe that was a year ago now. It's a while ago, but yeah, that was really special. You're an amazing human, and you're just such an inspiration. When I heard your story, I just knew I had to have you on the show to talk about it. So why don't we go through this origin story of how you skirted death, and you just came out with like a phoenix rising out of the ashes and just turned your life around and had you've had such an impact on so many people. Like let's regale our listener with that story.
Well, thanks. It's been a while since I've heard my bio read like that. And, as you're reading it, I'm going through the movie in my mind of sitting in a hospital bed when a doctor's telling me that you might need to get your affairs in order because it's unlikely you're going to last much longer. And that was right before Christmas in 2017. So, my kids were there, and right before we said goodbye, when they were leaving. we didn't mention the fact it'd be likely the last time I'd see them, but it was just me and my mother at that point, and we were waiting in Jacksonville because I was getting really sick, and I was eating a sandwich late at night. I wasn't supposed to be eating either that late, but I was going to be dead anyway, so I was enjoying a sandwich. I remember that, and the phone rang, and in my phone is a number that I had coded Mayo On-Call Liver. So I saw the name come up, and I grabbed it, and the nurse says, "Is this Mr. McMahon?" I said, "Yes." She says, "Are you in Jacksonville?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "We have a potential donor for you." I said, "Wow, incredible." She said, there's a catch, though. He's what we call a high-risk donor. He is a prisoner, and he is also an IV drug user. So this is what's called a high-risk donor, and I took it, of course, and I said, "Yeah, we'll be right in." And so we went across the street to Mayo Clinic. I had bought a house just across the street. I was just sitting there waiting. I was there a few months, and then the liver was not ready. The person was still alive, and the doctors were coming in throughout the day and saying that they're waiting to get other transplant teams in place. This kid was on life support. He was brain dead, but not dead. And to my understanding, they put dozens of transplant teams in place all over the country, and his liver saved my life, but other parts of him saved other people's lives. So one day I'm thinking I'm going to be dead and I'm never going to see my kids again. And the next moment I get an organ in my body. And at the time I was swelled up pretty good. And I was a big guy, as you read in my bio. And the next day I had an incredible experience. But my eyes woke up, I woke up, my mom's sitting there and she's crying and we're all crying. And when I opened my eyes, my eye pupils were blue. But the whites of my eyes were red before that, but they were blue. So I opened my eyes had cleared overnight because the bile and the toxins were leaving my body, almost evacuating my body. And I was supposed to be in the hospital recovering for a few weeks, and I walked out the door 4 days later. So that's how it ended. And I just want you to know where it ended, and then I could tell you a little bit of where it began. In 2015, I started getting panic attacks. Pretty significant panic attacks. I was 350 pounds. I was the CEO of a major insurance company's franchise in northern New England, and I had 600 brokers and 150 agents. We had 60,000 customers, and that's what I was doing 2 years earlier. I was running this big company, but I was like Tommy Boy, met the Wolf of Wall Street, and formed a person. I was a very loud personality, I would say. So I used to drink a lot and I used to have a lot of fun, and that didn't work out so well. But if you roll the clocks back 25 years, I left University of Mass Lowell. I was a baseball player. My ex-wife and I met there, and we got pregnant. So I had to leave school. I had no money. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. The only job I can get, this is 1990, was selling life insurance door to door. So this journey started after becoming a hero on the baseball diamond, a scholarship baseball player, to zero, door-to-door life insurance salesman. And then I was starting my career and learning about, how to survive and ultimately how to thrive in life insurance, which I ended up figuring out, obviously. But what I'd never figured out was, how do I control my behavior? How do I do the right thing and live a healthy and happy life? I could never figure that out. And so this journey, brought me to the death's doorstep. And now, after my fall from grace in front of the world, and when you turn jaundice in front of everybody, it's quite humiliating. So part of the journey was just about, coming back from that and trying to reinvent myself, because I had alcoholic liver failure. And that's what I was diagnosed with a few months earlier. It's like I was dying from alcohol. And if you had alcoholic liver failure, you got to be sober for 6 months before you're eligible for transplant. And what I also had to do was go to addiction center. Right before that, I got the transplant. I spent a month in an addiction center where they told me something which I didn't like. They told me I was an addict. They told me I had a disease. and they told me there's no cure. And their recommendation was to go to meetings every day and, talk about that and talk about the past, basically. And I didn't like that. So that's their version of what's called rehabilitation, which is to restore something or someone back to the original condition. And after I got my transplant, I saw a video about a Japanese mending process called Kintsugi. And Kintsugi is a way that the Japanese have historically repaired broken pottery, and they do it with this golden lacquer. And the golden lacquer is a symbol of perfection that has left and been replaced by a fracture. But these fractures aren't considered to be ugly; they're considered to be quite beautiful. It's proof that you've lived. And so they put this pottery back with this golden lacquer, and the repaired pottery is more valuable than the original unbroken pottery. So Kintsugi means golden rejoining. And I really like that because I started thinking about like, okay, I can put myself back together. I can recreate myself, which means to make something new that has never existed before rather than to rehabilitate. So I wrote my first book. I said, I got to put this down on paper, how I'm going to rebuild myself, because I was a disaster. It looked like a piece of pottery is dropped and scattered all over the floor. So I had to put that back together. And why I wanted to do it was because I wanted to make my children proud of me, that I got off the canvas, I came back in, and I made a play at it.
Yeah, amazing. And Kintsugi, I love that that concept. It's something I've talked about on other episodes on the show. And one other concept I want to share with you, Terrance, is this idea of being anti-fragile. Are you familiar with the book Anti-Fragile?
I didn't see the book yet, but it's the same guy that wrote a couple books, didn't he?
Yeah. He wrote The Black Swan. Yeah. Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
I haven't read it yet, but I heard about it.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And the idea of an anti-fragile system, whether it's your immune system or it's Mother Nature or it's capitalism or whatever, it is thriving on the chaos and on the breakage rather than just being resilient and weathering it. It blossoms and grows and evolves and is requiring the stressors from the environment rather than just trying to weather them and live through it for another day. So that is a concept that I have applied not just to like my immune system or whatever, but to my personality and my consciousness and who I am and how I show up in the world. So an anti-fragile person isn't merely resilient and able to let stuff roll off my back like a duck, like water off its back. Nope, I am going to grow from this. I'm seeing this as an opportunity and not a challenge. It's a blessing that hasn't been revealed yet. Because in Judaism they teach that there are only blessings. That's all that exists are blessings, and that those blessings are either revealed or unrevealed. So if you want more regular blessings that you can quickly identify as a blessing, then pray for more revealed blessings. Otherwise, it's just it's a mix. So I love operating in that realm of everything's a blessing, and I'm anti-fragile and growing and evolving through all of it.
One thing that is revealed to me every single morning that makes me think of Kintsugi is my scar. I have a scar that runs down my stomach and it goes underneath my breasts. And there's two scars in liver transplant. One's like a sickle, and the other one's the T. And this big, massive scar sits in my body. And every time I look at it, and I see it every morning, it's a symbol of the transformation. So Paulo Coelho said that your scars are like medals that are branded on the flesh, and it'll make your enemies terrified of you because you've come close to the end, but you didn't. So it's an interesting concept. Like these symbols of hope and transformation have been a big part of why I wanted to make a comeback to begin with, instead of taking another path. The world has a suit that they want you to put on, the narrative that's supposed to happen. If you're this, then you do this. And I was still young, and I'd lost a lot. I don't even want to tell you, but I lost most of my money, most of my friends, most of my dignity, a business that was, cash flowing a lot of money that's designed for you to do it until you retire. And so I was almost to zero when I got saved, because I had a family meeting, and in my family meeting, you're pushing piles of your money away from you to your family, your church. My mom and dad were still alive at the time, so I was going to predecease them. And I'm making all these decisions with my brother. And after he was in the room, I was like, wow, like all of this and everything is gone. Like, what a mistake I've made with my life. Like, I was pretty talented, but I went down to zero. And one of the very few advantages to going to zero is there's not much else to go but up. And when you make any progress off of zero, like just walking out of that hospital in 4 days, because they said I'll never do it, I got up the next day. I got up out of bed and I was walking around. It's just, that's a win. So then I started doing things like binging on books instead of booze, and drinking water, having great conversations with people like yourself. If I was lucky enough to bump into someone who had a consciousness and had a philosophy that they wanted to share. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was making momentum. And in the momentum, I found the miracle of the algorithm, the recipe for not only computers, but for life, like how to become more healthy, happy, free, successful. And there was just certain things I wanted to do. These dominoes that are behind me are a symbol of what's called amplified force. It's a domino is symbolic of action potential. And when it sits down without energy moving it, it's storing energy, which is potential. And when move forward, creates a velocity. And physics will tell you that a 2-inch domino can knock over a 3-inch domino 150% more. And it keeps repeating. So the domino effect, that thing can keep going. And that 2-inch domino in 13 progressions can knock over a 2-story building. So I went from knocking them dead to being nearly dead to making a comeback. That's what this all is about.
Amazing. I love that analogy about a domino with amplified force. Reminds me of an analogy that I use when I talk to people about when you are procrastinating something. You have this potential energy. It's like a rock on the top of a hill. It's all the stored energy. And if you put the effort in and you just get the thing done that you've been procrastinating, you release all this stored potential energy. And it's just this huge whirlwind of energy and excitement and everything that you're able to tap into. You get into a flow state and you're able to accomplish so much more than you're normally able to do, just because you focused on that thing you've been procrastinating and you got it done. And so you got that rock turned from potential energy into kinetic. So the domino analogy is, it's the same thing.
It's hard to stop something that's moving like that. And it's also hard to start it. Right?
Potentially. But we all get help from above, right? So it's insurmountable and impossible on your own, but holding God's hand, everything happens with ease and grace and perfect timing.
I reached out to a guy the other day. I have never mentioned this on a podcast. His name's Sean Smith. He's a healer. So the Thursday before I got a transplant, this guy said, we got to go to church. And I was in Jacksonville, and that's the Bible Belt. There's these rock star massive churches, these super churches. And I was pretty sick. I could barely walk, but he brought me, and this healer was doing a seminar. It wasn't like regular church. There was several hundred people in the audience. He looked up to me and he said, "You come back." So he sent someone up to pick me out of the crowd. And he laid his hands on me and chanted, right? And at the time, the reason I thought I'd be dead is my sodium was so low that I was nearly dead, but I was inoperable. So I would go in every day to Mayo Clinic, almost every day, to get my blood tested, because I had to be at a certain level to get transplanted, to just be on the list. And I wasn't even listed yet. So a week before I got my transplant, I wasn't listed. This is a Thursday night. So I go in the next day, my sodium miraculously goes up. They quickly put me on the list. I mean, I remember it was a Friday. The lady's like, "We got to get you on the list. We're going to get you a liver." And I was like, "Yes, we're going to do this." And, there's no medical reason I'm alive. The doctors were repeatedly telling me, "Mr. McMahon, I can't believe you're still here." And it was conversations with God. The Bible sat in my stomach, and it was keeping me alive, reading the good book. They call it deathbed literature, right? You ever hear the 5 regrets of the dying?
I've heard of it, but tell us.
As Bronnie Ware is a hospice nurse, with she heard these people talk about regrets at the end of life. So, and I agree with them. They're the standard regrets that I was feeling. I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I kept better touch with my family. I wish I was kinder to myself with the words I said over my lifetime. I wish I lived a life that was more true to myself than the life that the world was giving me, and I thought everyone else wanted me to live. So that's called deathbed literature. If you want to read it, you can say, "Oh, I got it." But the deathbed literature I read and connected with was the Bible. I read the book, and it was it's that it sits in my room right now with me, and there's just certain parts of that help me.
What's an example of a part that helps you?
Well, trust in the Lord with all your heart. He'll set your path straight. That was something I said to myself time and time again. And always acknowledge him. And it's Proverbs, and that was just important to me. Reading the book. The challenge I've had as I started to get success again, frankly and transparently, is I don't have the conversations with God that I once had on my deathbed. So my Christian mentor taps me on the shoulder once in a while and makes sure I'm reading, bring it in, and I'm committed to doing that.
That's awesome. Let me share something with you that came in this morning for me. So I asked God in the morning when I'm doing my prayers and connection. What do I need, God? What do I need to know or do today? And prior to me doing this prayer, I had, kind of first thing when I wake up, pretty much, I'll do it's a prayer, Hebrew prayer called the Shema. And essentially the bottom line of it is it's a short prayer. God is one, right? So God is one. We're all one. We're all part of God. There's nothing that's not of God. So really helps kind of recenter you after, waking up. So in between, I got an angel number that showed up, 555. I checked my phone, and there was an alarm that was set to go off in 55 minutes and 50 seconds. Okay, so the 555, that's an angel number. It jumped off the screen when I saw my mobile phone. And then I hear the word in my head, Proverbs. But that was actually when I asked God, what do I need to know or do today? And I got the word Proverbs, and it's like, oh, that relates to the angel number 555, doesn't it? Yep. Okay. So I Google 555 Proverbs, or Proverbs 555. I forget which one. I think it was Proverbs 555. And I get this in the featured snippet in the Google search results. And it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and do not lean on your understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Is that essentially the same section that you were just referring to?
Yeah, that was the one that I kept saying over and over again. My mentor was saying that. Keep saying that prayer. Like, he'll set your path straight. That's Proverbs.
Yeah, Proverbs 3:5.
Yeah. I have a weird memory. Like I forget things in that's one of the things I had from all the ascites that was in my brain. It's there's a high so I have a little bit of memory problem. So when I do shows and stuff like that, I usually have a prompter, and there's certain things I remember and I don't remember. But I'll never forget sitting there with hopelessness, just attaching myself to the hope of getting a shot to stay in the game. Let me in, let me stay in the game. I will come back. I'll make you proud. I'll play full out, because there's going to come a day when I'm going to be able to talk to God and say, thanks for the extra time. Wow, did I do a lot of things with that time? I spent more time with my family, spent more time in faith, spent more time traveling the world, writing books, sharing ideas, less fixated on money, and more fixated on contribution. So that extra time's a big deal.
So it's a gift. It's a miracle. For me, this is profound. It's just another example of synchronicity, that everything is so perfectly orchestrated from above, and everything is lined up like with precision and accuracy. So I got this Proverbs message this morning. I'll look it up. I get that quote that I read out, and then I text it to my friend who sends me Bible quotes every day. Yeah, he was the guy who introduced me and my wife in 2012 at the end of a Tony Robbins event, Date with Destiny. He's a wonderful, wonderful human. So I text it to him, and then I just think, okay, well, I was supposed to text it to him because I was, but I thought that was the end of it. That was a message for me, and it was a message for Adele. The message for me was, stop trying to figure everything out and lean on my understanding, and just trust more in God. So I got that message loud and clear, but I thought, okay, message received, check. Moving on with the day. And then here it is towards the end of the day, and comes full circle back to one of the first messages I got today.
There's another passage about when Lazarus was, he had healed them and he left, and he heard that he was sick again. And Jesus was like, I got to go back. And they say, go by night. And he says that the man that walks by day doesn't stumble because he has the light of God. The man that walks at night stumbles because he has no light. And I'm not saying that correctly, because that's just something I don't do well. But I can tell you why it meant a lot to me as I read that one. Is I was walking. I'd go for walks. I didn't have a job anymore. I had to leave my job in June. And at night, in New Hampshire, I'd go for walks just to get outside. And those frost heaves that come up out of the grounds up there, if you ever lived up there, the roots come up and the ice, it creates a bump. And I fell. It's very dangerous for me to fall because I could bleed to death. And I only fell at night. It was only at night. She says, you're always falling at night. So there's always this thing about the light, walk by day, be in the light. And that always just, every time I hear it and see it, I was like, yeah, I got to be in the light. You don't need to be hiding behind things. Be yourself, speak. This is a time when people of courage have to step up and speak out. In our country and around the world, there's a departure from to common sense, and faith isn't in conversations anymore like it should be.
Yep. So true. And you have to say the uncomfortable thing. Because if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Like, that's part of you. That's part of the test. It's part of you being here and learning the lessons. You got to step up.
Yeah. In a world of censorship and cancel culture,
wokeness, yeah,
unapologetically pro-life and unapologetically pro-Christian, pro-Constitution, and we need these conversations to be brought up from the cellars back into the mainstream. People got to start talking about it.
Yeah. Another quote I'll share from the Bible that it's just been profound for me is Isaiah 6:8. And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." I learned about this quote from not the Bible directly, but a book about how to become a delivery agent of God's miracles. So the book is called "You Were Born for This."
I think you gave me that book.
Yeah, I recommended it to you. That's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I remember we chatted about it.
Yeah, when we met in person.
I'm moving, so I just packed up all my books. I chatted with you after about it by text. All my books are in boxes now because I'm moving. My fiance and I are moving somewhere, but we don't know where. We're going to put our stuff in storage and spend a month in Mexico and figure out where the world wants us.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Let's be guided, right? Yeah, we're excited about it. It's our first time in our lives. Neither of us had a house.
That's cool. Well, good luck. Oh,
My beautiful books are going
yeah.
away, but
Well, you can get them on
it's
Kindle.
all right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So Bruce Wilkinson wrote "You Were Born for This." There's another "You Were Born for This" book that's by somebody else, but this one that I'm recommending is Bruce Wilkinson. And you can essentially do like Isaiah did. Imagine yourself at the feet of God. You're essentially interrupting a board meeting, archangels getting their assignments of which miracles to deliver where and when by God. And here you are, like Isaiah, showing up saying, "Here I am, Lord, please send me." And just having that intention, for me, I actually imagine myself at the feet of God and making that request. And the most incredible, miraculous, synchronistic and serendipitous moments happen where I get to be God's delivery agent. And one of the most important things to remember from this process, it's not just volunteering to be that deliverer of miracles, but you got to be humble through it. Like you didn't do any of this. This was God. This was all God. And it's very tempting for your spiritual ego to take credit. Don't do it. Don't take the bait of, oh, thank you. Really, it was nothing. No, I'm happy to do it. Nope, nope, nope. This was God. God delivered this. I'm just an instrument. Like we're all instruments of God, on a chessboard being moved around. Like you really need to transfer that credit. It's all God. Even just saying, "Oh, I'm just a delivery person." Well, there's still I in there. No, you received this miracle from God. Done. I'm not in the sentence. This was all God. And so as you elevate and get more and more spiritual and more connected, and there are more miracles and beyond like even comprehension level odds that happen over and over and over again. Like what are the odds of this one? This is 1 in trillions, and this is the third time this week. Well, you can get kind of full of yourself, like, wow, I'm special and I'm connected. And I'm just thinking of that Star Wars meme where the alien guy is like, "It's a trap."
Oh yeah.
That's a dangerous trap. Don't fall for it.
The ego.
Yeah, that ego that is wearing spiritual clothing and looks all fancy, like, oh, this is a very high level ego. No, that's still ego. It's just wearing a fancier costume. Don't take the bait. So, what would be another miraculous example of something in your life that unfolded that ties into maybe some sort of biblical insight or distinction for you?
I can tell you a crazy story. I mean, there's like 4 wacky things that happened to me in my little journey, and none of them are easy to understand. This one's very difficult to understand. So in the fall, around November, I'm in Boston, and I'm at the Harvard Hospital, or Harvard University's hospital. Best hospital in the world, right? So to speak. And I'm playing full out, and I'm going to survive. I'm trying to like get my head right. And I take a test. And I get the doctor says that I've been drinking while I was on the transplant list. I hadn't been. I said, it's impossible. They did what's called a transjugular biopsy. So they put a cord down your neck and they take a little snip out of your liver. And they said, we have traces of alcohol in your liver. I said, well, I haven't had any alcohol at all. And they threw me off the program. So that was a pretty big deal because it was November and I had about 90 days left to live. And I was 60 days into that conversation. So I had like a month, as they were telling me. And I was getting sick, visibly sick. I was swelling up. My breath was starting to smell like ammonia, which means you're rotting from the inside, basically, because your stomach would fill up with what's called ascites. So I had to have these taps. It's called a paracentesis. They take a needle and they stick it in your abdomen for a few hours and they drain you. I had to have many of those. And I had multiple transfusions, but here I am getting kicked off the liver transplant list, and they claim that I have alcohol in my system. So I got to be sober for another 6 months if that was true, and it wasn't. Or I'm going to die. And something told me to go to Jacksonville. Someone mentioned it to me, and I just got fixated on going to Jacksonville, which is, by the way, where the guy put his hands on me. But when I got there, I didn't have an appointment with Mayo Clinic. I didn't have anything. And something made me go to a lie detector test at a secure facility by an FBI agent. He administered a lie detector test, and he said he's going to send the results to Mayo Clinic, which is where I directed them to be. So it's secure. I never touched them. Did a lie detector test, passed across the board. No detection whatsoever. And this was the one they give at Guantanamo Bay. It wasn't the polygraph. It was like a sensory thing. And he says, you're not lying. I said, I know I'm not lying. And then I had an appointment with Mayo Clinic. I had a concierge get me an appointment. And I told the psychologist there, because you got to go there. He says, when's the last time you had a drink? May 26th. Was the last time I had a drink. The day the doctor told me I could never drink again. The night I found out I had liver failure. That was it. Never drank again. He goes, why did you get that lie detector test? I said, I have no idea. He goes, we're gonna let you in the program and not make me wait 6 months. So my life got saved right there. Why did I go to Jacksonville? Why did I go to lie detector test? Don't know. I do know. Like it's not something I was ever trained to do. It was just an instinctive play. That saved my life. The prisoners saved my life. If I stayed in Boston and I was able to stay there, I wouldn't have gotten a transplant because there's not as many organs available in New England as there were in Florida for some reason. So I would have died. They told me that after the fact, that you probably would have died in Boston because there's just not that many organs up in the Northeast versus here. So these are all crazy, crazy things that I don't tell people because they think I'm out of my mind. Like that didn't happen. I said, yeah, it did. Did you see the Super Bowl when Tom Brady came back and scored 4 touchdowns in the last 7 minutes of the game? That happened to me in life. It just happened. It doesn't happen, but it did. All that stuff happened. And there's no signs of me ever having the problem, that most people have after they've had a transplant. Never sick, ever. I never get sick. I had COVID for like 6 hours. And it exited me. The bile that came into my body evacuated out of my body the next day. My eyes went white. It was crazy. That's like the demons leaving my body. So all these things were things that I know there's no medical reason I'm alive. And I'm thankful for the beautiful nurses and doctors in the Mayo Clinic. What a place. Like the Mayo Clinic is the Harvard of hospitals, because I've been to the Harvard of hospitals and it's a dump. Like the Mayo Clinic was a great place to experience. It was in Jacksonville, which is in the heart of Christianity in the South. So there was great preachers. I would go to church. I went to the church Tim Tebow went to. That was the church I ended up going to. So it was great. And I've never been a scholar of it, but I have a spiritual understanding of this miracle and the transformation and the gift, and the donor that died, and the person who also died because they didn't get the liver that I got. So 3 people are in the equation. I'm still alive, and those 2 are dead. That's why I don't drink anymore. That's why I try to live fully. I try to do the right thing. I try to be a good example. These are all things I think about because of the people that are gone. That I'm here to honor. The rejection of the organ. Like, I'm not worried about it. I think we've blended as a soul. Me and this traveler that's along with this ride for me. He was 28. He had a different life than me. Another miracle. If you want to hear it, I got another miracle. You want to hear this one?
Yeah, of course.
My sister Kathleen was dying from liver failure, too. And she had been on the list for many years. She had, and the week before I got my transplant, the Sunday night before me, Kathleen had called, and she had a liver donor. Guy died. Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Kathleen's life was saved by a liver donor under a week before me. So I tell them at Mayo Clinic that my sister had a transplant at Mayo Clinic. She goes, "What room?" I said, No, in Scottsdale. My sister. They're like, impossible. It's not impossible. It happened.
Yeah. These doctors, I mean, they're just like so in the material world, and they're handing out death sentences like, "Oh, you have 90 days," and then the person disconnects from the creator and thinks that, "Oh, that's that's how much I have." It's like, "Oh, do you really?" Like you're tapped in to the creator and his plan, so it's actually 90 days. That's what the assignment was for this person. It's just they're playing God. They're playing God, and they don't even recognize or acknowledge that they're doing that.
Have you ever heard of the book called Radical Remission by Dr. Kelly Turner?
No.
After I was, I looked at a lot of different readings after I was saved that were like some about what's called post-traumatic success, which is the opposite of post-traumatic stress. I call it PTS junction. You got one way or the other. You're going to go with this. You got a change moment. You got an opportunity to make the choice. You'll be successful either way, right? So post-traumatic success is just as common as post-traumatic stress. You don't get as much attention. If success could just mean that I'm living a healthy life, I'm meeting a new woman, I'm getting married this year, I see my children, I'm good with that. I don't need to buy jets and fly around the world. So Dr. Kelly Turner wrote a book called Radical Remission because I was also interested in that. Like, how do you come back from the unthinkable? And she had done studies of cancer, pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I think it was like 450 different people who had it. That's a death sentence, and all survived. And all 450 people, let's call it, did 73 different things that they credit with survival. But all of them did these 9 things. There's 9 things that people did to survive. And the number one thing was faith. They had a connection with their maker. And only 3 of them were physical things. Most of them were spiritual things that you did: support, friendship, prayer, contribution, like these things that are the medicine of the world. The transformation toolbox is not a vitamin or a pill. It's in your mind and your heart. So these are the things that I connected with. That's quite a book.
No, that is so cool. And I have to tell you that this was, you were meant to relay this to me right now, because the person that I told you about, that I sent that Bible quote to today, Proverbs 3:5 and 6, his name is Adele. And he almost died from pancreatic cancer. It's, I think, a 4% survival rate. So 96% die. He was in the 4%. And his faith is unshakable. And as you were talking about the book, and the author and all that in the study. Thing that came through loud and clear from above was Adele needs to read this book, and this goes in his book that he's writing, or that some of the key points or distinctions from the Radical Remission book needs to go into his book. So I'll forward that on to him. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a thing. And my sister Kathleen, who has had liver transplant, just survived pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
So there's angels among us, right? Love that song. It's as corny as it sounds. Like they're here.
Oh yeah, I love the. There's another song about angels called 100,000 Angels. I love that song. It's really really beautiful. It's by Bliss. Very calming and connecting, and
Yeah.
there's so many angels. So it's just like it boggles the mind. It's just it's incredible how many angels there are. Anyways, I digress. So one thing that I'm also being nudged to point out to you is you used the word crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not crazy. And I actually was just going through this whole conversation in an episode I recorded an hour and a half ago, or 2 hours ago, and that so that episode with Jennifer Lyle. She said, "Oh, this is crazy. This is crazy." And it's not crazy. It is by design. This is a way that the universe is supposed to work. And it's disrespectful to call it crazy. Like the miracles and the unfolding and the synchronicities and all that is the scaffolding of the universe. That's how it works. And when you dismiss it or talk about it when there's an exclamation like, that's crazy, it dismisses how that's the way it's meant to be. And it's disrespecting the miracles that the creator is lining up for you. So just something to consider.
Yeah.
Another thing too I want to share with you is like what you called instinct, that you need to move to Jacksonville, that you need to get a lie detector test and all that. This is proof, if you needed it, that you're connected, that you hear God. Because it's not just talking to God. That's not enough. Prayer is talking to God, but it's also listening. Most people don't listen. They don't think they can hear God.
So I have another one if you'd like.
Okay, let's do it. I love it.
I don't know what this one quite means yet. I've been doing these AI events, teaching people how to use this new technology. So I found out about it December 26th. I was in Mexico with my fiance. Had a great year, probably the best year financially I had since I had my second life here. Not that I was celebrating. I was like, oh, things are going pretty good because my son's in my business. My other son's getting involved. So that's a pretty good thing. And I read reading through all the internet, chat GPT. And finally I see Jordan Peterson, who's a person I respect, and it said chat GPT.
Yeah, I love him.
I download it, and I'm a copywriter. I know you have your expertise in that space too, in SEO. Like I'm pretty good at writing copy. So I had a project coming up. I learned ChatGPT in a YouTube video. I wrote copy. It was better than I could write right away already, after me being 3 decades learning copy. Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, all the greats. So I did an event in Vegas. I had an instinct, a download that says, switch your TEDx event. We were training people to do TED. We switched it to ChatGPT. We sold the room out. We ended up having like 550 people. We sold out the room, and that was fine. We made a little bit of money and had a lot of fun and met a lot of great people. I met another person that's kind of interesting, but the next one we did was in Dallas. So in Dallas, I'm talking, and the room's a kind of a dump. It was the only one we can get. And on the left side is this guy that looks like Jesus. It's like a beautiful human being, long hair. He had a beard. And he had a big cross on his chest. And he got me on my way to the bathroom. He goes, I need to pray for you. He says, will you let me? I said, of course. And he said a prayer, and he told me about all these things that I don't have to worry about. Like, I'm worried about fasting. Like, I want to fast. And I said, like, the doctors don't necessarily want me fasting. And he's like, Jesus wants you to know you can fast. And Jesus wants you to know that you need to pay attention to Ephesians 3:20. Which at the time I had no idea. And he prayed in tongues again. For the second time in my life, someone's prayed with me in tongue and had his hand on me. And that verse is about asking for an incredible thing. So I've been trying to internalize what that means. Like, that was a kind of an interesting experience. And the guy came and left my life as quickly as he came there. He's a real person. He just looked like Jesus, which is interesting. And then it's like, you got to ask for this big gift, or you don't even look at it as a gift. And I don't know exactly how to internalize it yet. I've read it several times since, but that was kind of an encounter. I've had lots of them. I keep having them.
There's a great angel number book by Kyle Gray, and it's called Angel Numbers. You can look up the 320. So Ephesians 3:20, of course, that's a critical part of the message for you, is what's in the Bible there. But then the 3:20 jumps out at me too. And I just want to read to you what's in the Kyle Gray book under 3:20. God and the ascended masters are surrounding you with supportive and healing love, helping you to have confidence that everything is in divine and perfect order. Ooh, that gives me goosebumps. That feels like an appropriate and precise message for you. How does that feel to you?
Incredible. My when I got sick, I have another story to tell you. So when I got sick, I met this guy. He's a preacher in New Hampshire. He's from Texas. New Hampshire was at the time, and I believe still is, the least Christian state in the world, or in our world, in the USA. I think it was 50. It was dead last. This guy came to New Hampshire. He started a church called Manchester Christian Church. And when I took over for CEO of this company, one of the old CEOs retiring, who was a committed Christian, and they were, they had prayer in the room every day. They'd go into the room and they'd pray. And I was, when they appointed me, I was Tommy Boy, met the Wolf of Wall Street. I was a partier, loud guy, high octane dude. And I meet Jimmy, and we ended up blending beautifully without talking a lot of church. We talked about just good things, and he knew my heart's in the right place. And then I knew him for several years. I got sick out of nowhere. And, when I got diagnosed with liver failure, it was a, Memorial Day weekend. I go in the hospital, and the doctors are like, I thought I was having a heart thing. The doctor came in and he says, you're in liver failure. You're going to die from liver failure if you don't get a transplant, probably in 6 months. I found that out, and then I didn't know what to do with it because I wasn't connected to God. I ended up talking. I called for an appointment with the preacher. I don't know what it was about him. I always was curious about him. I went to his church, and I had a building that I wanted to donate. And I said, hey, his name's Bo. I said, Bo, I want to donate this building to the church. I had a big tax bill coming up too. And he looked at me and goes, you're not here to donate any building. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you're not here to donate a building. Why are you here? And I looked at him. I said, I'm dying from liver failure. I'll be dead soon. It's unlikely I'll be able to get a transplant. So he invited me to church the following Saturday. I go to Manchester Christian Church. I'm in the right part of the church. I'm sitting down by myself. And he asked everyone, is anyone here sick? So I raised my hand. I didn't raise it at first. I was embarrassed, but he looked at me a few different times. I raised my hand, and then several other people did too. And he asked everybody in the church to put their hands on you. So I had like 25, 30 people putting their hands on me, and other people too. And then within a month, I was baptized in my own pool. This was September, and I'm failing quickly. So, my Christian birthday was August 24th, I believe. Yeah, August 31st. Strike that. It was August 31st is when I had my Christian birthday. Anyway, that group of people are the CEO that was my counterpart before I got there was my Christian mentor. I said, "You're my Christian mentor." So the one thing he said to me while I was going through this thing, he says, "You're on a mission. You're gonna have someone tap you on the shoulder and show you the way." And I've been doing that since. I'm doing my thing, but I'm waiting. When's your term? When are you gonna get tapped on the shoulder? So what is it? Because some of the things that's happening in this country right now make me feel like that might be it. Like, is that do they need help with this fight? This good versus evil conflict we have right now.
No, that's not it. At least that's what I'm receiving about it. That's not it. But there's a Neville Goddard quote that I'm being guided to share with you about that. So let me grab that real quick. There is a great difference between resisting evil and renouncing it. When you resist evil, you give it your attention, you continue to make it real. When you renounce evil, you take your attention away from it and give your attention to what you want. Now is the time to control your imagination and give your energy to what you want. How's that resonate for you?
What was it? What was it? The quote from?
It's from Neville Goddard. Have you ever heard of him?
Resisting and renouncing. No.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. So resisting, you feed it your energy.
Yeah.
Right. If you keep showing up every day wearing a bulletproof vest, the universe is going to provide you an opportunity to use that vest. It's like,
yeah, it'll send bullets your way, right?
Yeah. There's another thing too, is that when I learned this from Kim White, who is another guest on this podcast, is that when you pray to the universe, you're praying to the duality, the good and the bad, the dark and the light. You're going to get it, like the full spectrum. You pray to God, it's all light, it's all benevolence, it's all God.
The light again.
So pray to God.
Oh yeah.
And it's so important when people say, "Oh, call it whatever you want. Call it the universe, call it the great spaghetti, whatever." He's like, no, that's disrespectful for one. And it also is misdirection. You've been fed misinformation. You can refer to him as God or the creator or, some other respectful terminology, but your direct, the vibration of your words are not just, it's energy, it's the quantum field. It's like, no, this is the creator, your creator who created you. You are a creation. You're not at the same level, not even close as God. So, yeah, be respectful. So, anyways, yeah, this has just been such an incredible conversation. I'm really, really grateful for you being so open and vulnerable and sharing with these experiences and with your lessons and the gifts of it all. It's just incredible. So thank you for being an inspiration and for being you. And I know you're going to do incredible things, and you're going to reveal lots of light, and you're here for a reason, a big one. And Terrance, if our listener or viewer is interested in learning from you, hearing more, I don't know if they're wanting to learn more, for example, about the AI and Chat GPT stuff, if they're interested in learning more about recovering from addiction or from health challenges that are seemingly insurmountable, how do they reach out, or how do they learn from you?
The best place to get me is on Instagram, which is my name, Terrance.McMahon. TERRANCE.McMahon, MCMAHON. All my books are on under my name on Amazon. I got a few books. I just wrote this book called The 1 Hour Book: How to Write a Book in an Hour with ChatGPT, and which is kind of a fun book. But the website for the events is chatgptinaday.com. That's their events, and we're hosting our next one in Orlando, May 23rd.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you, listener. You're big and important too. We all are. So what are you going to do to reveal your light this week? This is your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off. Have a great week.